We recording? Great. Okay. So I just got done reading Esquire's new cover story, An American Boy, and okay, so for those of you who are unfamiliar with this story, this is Esquire's March 2019 cover story. It has been marketed as the profile of the typical white kid or the typical white male high school student in Trump's America. So that's the general gist of the article, or at least that's how they've no, okay. That's not the general gist of the article. That is how they have sold this. So this is the article. This is what it physically looks like. This is my roommate's free copy that he gets because I don't know why any of us would subscribe to Esquire otherwise. The main tagline of this article on the front page here is An American Boy, what it's like to grow up white, middle class, and male in the era of social media, school shootings, toxic masculinity, #MeToo, and a divided country. All right, so that is not the article we got, like, at all. Like, this article is so far gone from anything like that. It's gotten okay. So this article has been a little bit controversial already, and I think it is all warranted because this is bad, like really bad. Okay, all right. So let me read you the second description that we get, in the actual page of the article. How this looks. Ryan Morgan is a high school senior from West Bend, Wisconsin. Like all 17-year-olds, he thinks a lot about what he wants to do with his life because everyone keeps telling him he's supposed to have it all figured out. He'd rather just talk about his girlfriend, or cool sneakers, or the Packers. But at a time of social upheaval, he's quickly learning that guys like him must adjust to a new future. I know what I can't do, he says. I just don't know what I can do. Okay, alright. Gotta get my Fuji apples. You know what they say? An apple a day keeps Esquire reporters away. Alright. So this article is about this kid, Ryan Morgan, from West Bend, Wisconsin, small town north of Milwaukee, kind of suburban town, and they draw and they make note of it later, but deep red town too, like deep red Trump voter town, almost 100% white, very much like Trump's America. So Ryan is like kind of painted as your, I guess, like typical all-American kid. He works a manual labor work-study job. He has a girlfriend. His parents are divorced. He got kind of a broken family, but he doesn't seem to be too bothered by it. So the article opens with this story. It's this story about something that happened to Ryan. He was in one of his classes one time, and he's the bell rings and he's like opening the door, and I guess they don't describe it too clearly, but he's opening the door for he's holding the door open for his classmates. He's holding the door open for people as they're leaving the room, and he's holding it open, and this girl comes over and is mad at him. She's like, stop holding the door open. Stop holding the door open. And so he doesn't do anything, and he just opens the door again, and then she slaps him across the face, and he hits her back right after that. And then she tackles him or something, and the language that the article uses is that she clawed at him. She clawed at him like an animal or something is the language that they use. So basically he held the door open for this girl. She got mad about it and punched him. He fought back, and then she tackled him. The teacher saw the whole thing, and after this girl I guess got up and ran off, the teacher didn't think it was necessary to tell her to stay or something, or not leave, or instead what the teacher does is just lets this girl go and tells Ryan, oh, you should report this right away. But so he doesn't report it right away because he's got to go catch the bus or something, and then he reports it the next day, and they kind of gloss over the details here, but basically what happens is he ends up taking the heat for it because this other girl had bruises, and and he's a man, so he's always gonna take the blame for this sort of. You get what they're going for. This is like there's a double standard between how men and women are like punished for for violent actions and for like committing violence and stuff like that. This is trying to speak to that idea a little bit, which very atypical situation, but okay, let's move on. Fine. So this is why we're talking about Ryan, because this happened to him. So that is our like introductory note for this article. Ryan was just being a salt of the earth gentleman to all of his classmates, and this girl attacks him and he takes the blame for it. So that's where we're starting off. It doesn't really help that what I just described, like the opening to this article, is basically a beat for beat scene from Trigger Warning. So then we start to learn a little bit more about Ryan, and like this is where it starts to get a little bit weird, because you'd think that they would focus on sort of the blowback from this situation, like how people treated him, how people like thought about it, what he learned from it and stuff like that. They talk about it for probably like half a paragraph, and then it is dropped immediately so that we can just learn general facts about Ryan's life. So they establish right off the bat that Ryan is kind of directionless. Like he doesn't really exert himself or anything like that at all. He's 6'5", yet he doesn't play any sports in school. Like, despite this being a kid that like high school basketball and football coaches would absolutely fawn over, Ryan doesn't want to do that. That's not his thing. He seems like a pretty normal kid, but like he's not portrayed as like really being that cool. Like he has a custom built computer, and he built this like car crash simulator on it, which that's a little creepy, but so he built this car crash simulator, and like the article has this like really interesting line, which I'm just gonna read this right off the bat here. What does it look like to see a car slam into a brick wall at 100 miles per hour? Ryan can tell you. Which, out of context, that's not a good line. That's not a good line at all. All right, so I'm getting off track here. So basically, after we hear about the girl attacking him incident, the whole like next page and a half of this story is really just us hearing about Ryan's day to day. And I guess the idea is it's trying to show us like how normal he is, and like, oh, he's just like you, which, okay, fine, but like, who cares? Like, okay, all right, I'm back. I think I was gone for a little while because it definitely got a little bit darker outside. There's noticeably less light in here. So then he starts to talk about how politics has affected his school, and I'm like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Basically Ryan talks about like, oh, after the Trump election, every clique or every friend group, separated into political factions. He says like, oh, it ruined friendships. People started hanging flags on their lockers. There was like a whole like sect of like Heil Trump people. There was that. Like, they talk a lot about like, wearing like political slogans on your shirts. Stuff that like kids care about. Stuff that kids think is like really bold and important. But like, okay, so they have that, and there's this little episode where he, so it talks about like how Ryan uses social media, which it's really hammering home this idea that like Ryan is just like kids his age, but he's not one of the bad ones. He doesn't go on Facebook or Twitter or Snapchat. He only uses Instagram. Like, I guess Instagram paid Esquire money or something. I don't know. But anyways, like, so it goes out of its way to like say that, stuff that normal kids, like Ryan doesn't like it. Oh, like, I forgot to mention this. So there was a scene earlier where Ryan is with the author of this article, where she's interviewing him in the library in the school, and the article goes out of its way to mention that they were sitting like a few tables away from, I think the exact quote was, a couple teenage girls. They were talking about vaping. They were sitting a few tables away from, Gen Z teenagers talking about insert annoying Gen Z thing here. Like, and he talks about how, like, oh, if people post, like, memes, like left wing memes, and you comment something on them, they just call you names. Like, you can't debate anything without anyone calling you names. Like I support Donald Trump. Why did anybody, like what did I do wrong? Like what did I do wrong? What's so bad about me? And like, it's just full of this whole notion that like your political beliefs exist in a vacuum, and it's everyone else's job to like be courteous to you for them, despite the fact that you have seemingly no interest in defending them or anything. And but the next part of this little episode is like Ryan sees a feminist meme on one of his peers' Instagram pages, and he comments on it. Like, he comments like, that's really stupid to say. Like, I don't know why you would say that. And like, he's really upset that like he can't debate people. He doesn't really seem to understand what debate is, though. Debate isn't trolling your peers on Instagram. It's engaging people on the terms of their own arguments. Like, it's not like this is not starting a conversation. This is ending a conversation. Like, but anyways, so like on this same page, it like references several cases where like celebrities have like said things, and then it's been dredged up later on Twitter or Facebook or social media or something, and they've gotten flack for it. They draw attention to the James Gunn situation. Jennifer Percy very clearly doesn't know the full story of that, because it's a lot more complicated than just people were outraged and he got fired. So also on this same page, there's this list of stats about American boys. Like, there's a few different like stats here, and like I'm glad that they included these because they're pretty insightful, but like they don't really connect to anything else in the article, because you've got these very academic stats about social pressures that boys face in school, that how they feel, how like school affects them. And then meanwhile you've got Ryan just like getting mad because he can't troll people on Instagram anymore. Like, I don't get it. Like, it's very comical and disjointed, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And I feel like that was included from like an earlier draft of this article, and they just didn't take it out when they realized that was not the article they were making. Okay, so then the next section is where like we really first start to like go off the rails here. Like, so the next section, it goes to Ryan's it goes to one of his classes. It goes to his government and law class. It's trying to highlight sort of how the discourse in this class works. They talk about social issues, they talk about political issues, they have like debates and discussions and things, but they also take a quiz that places every student in the classroom on a political spectrum in terms of like their beliefs, from like, conservative reactionary to like extreme liberal, whatever. So it places them on this spectrum. Not only would any self-respecting public school just not only should they not be allowed to do that, I don't think mine was. Like, what on earth does that have to do? Does your students' political persuasions have to do with teaching about government and law? Nothing. It has nothing to do with it. Like, if you're teaching about government and law, that is an academic discipline. That is a social science, like, that you can objectively understand and study. The political persuasions of your potentially highly uninformed group of high school students who you're teaching it to could not be less relevant. Right? Like, but so, okay, so that's how it starts. So they take this test. Ryan is like a centrist, but like kind of conservative, I guess, a little bit, like, which they describe his like political beliefs, and he seems a little bit more than like kind of conservative. Like, he's pro-life. He supports the death penalty. He doesn't support access to welfare unless you get a job. He doesn't support needle exchanges, which I don't know why the hell that's his business. He doesn't support like public access to birth control. He doesn't support like condoms being distributed at high schools. The profile they paint of him is very much a Republican profile. It's very much somebody who's going to vote Republican from my understanding. So then it gets weird. Like, they sing songs, kind of. They sing these like songs about what it means to be liberal or conservative. Like, the lyrics in the songs are like these very on the nose, like, I'm a liberal, I think you should be able to kiss the guy across the room, that should be cool. And then the conservative one is like, oh, I'm a conservative, like, I hate social programs, and you better bet I believe in the electric chair. Like, I'm not even kidding. That's like wait, what's the actual line? I hate social programs, they make me want to puke. I would rather use the money for a 2-ton nuke. Welfare is not good. Before we had it, people tried, and I hope the biggest criminals are electrified. Which, this school, so this school is like, they point out earlier that this school that they go to is in like, I think the top like 5% of American public high schools or something. Like, it's one of like, it's in like the like top 1,200 schools, like, according to that U.S. World News Report list. It should be at the freaking bottom just because of this singing thing. Like, what the hell is that? Like, what on earth is that, and why is it being taught to children, and why are more people not talking about this yet? Like, forget the rest of this article. Like, forget Ryan. Like, shut that damn school down and fire that teacher. Like, Jesus. So that's Ryan's law class. Which, oh wow, it got pretty dark outside. Damn. So they talk a little bit about school shootings. So this school does drills for what to do in the case of an active shooter. We used to do the same thing. Ryan tells this like little story about like, oh, they actually like foiled a mass shooting plot here. The interviewer asks Ryan like, oh, what was the deal with this kid? And Ryan's like, oh, I don't know. He'd come up behind you and say weird stuff. He was pretty short. Probably just wanted attention. Ryan says that this guy who wanted to shoot their school up and made plans for it was just short and probably wanted attention. Go to hell, dude. Okay, so then the next whole page of this article is just this story from the author about how she went hunting with Ryan and his dad's family. Like, they drive up to his dad's house, and like we meet Ryan's stepsister, who's talking about how she's gonna go kill a bear with a crossbow. Like, and then there's this whole like paragraph where like it, in detail it talks about like, oh, when she kills the bear, the family's all gonna go and skin the bear in the dark. Like, they're gonna all like get together and just flay this bear. And I don't care. I just don't care about any of this. Like, this article is trying to present this kid with a very niche lifestyle. Like, he goes up to the woods and hunts bears with his sister, like, as the American everyman. And it's just insisting on telling us about all this stuff about like his hunting and like his family and how like badass they are or something. And it's so meandering, and I don't know what I'm supposed to take away from it. Like, so you hunt, guy. Like, who fucking cares? Like, it's not important. It doesn't matter at all. It's just a bunch of disconnected anecdotal bullshit, and I don't care about any of it. So then they go to the next episode, and it's Sunday. So you know what that means? Packers football. Okay, so Ryan, big Packers fan. this is probably the weirdest part of this article. It's a whole paragraph where like it tells this it's like a play by play. It's like Clay Matthews tackles the Redskins running back. He takes him to the ground. He gets up, he doesn't get a flag for it and he looks visibly relieved. Last week Matthews tackled a quarterback and he got a roughing the passer penalty and that really set the Packers back. And then Ryan just spends the next paragraph just complaining that the NFL doesn't allow enough tackling anymore. He's like, now you can't do anything. You can't hit the quarterback, 3 seconds after he threw the ball. Like he's like, oh, you can't tackle a guy, below here. You can't hit him in the helmet. You can't do all of this. I want to watch football, not some neutered version of football. Like, all right. This is such a minor point in this article, but it pisses me off because I like football, and this is such a BS argument. Like, those rules exist. Like, those rules are in place to save lives, and to protect the health and physical well-being of NFL players who are also, multi-million dollar assets for NFL teams, for the NFL itself, for these corporations. Like, I am sorry, Ryan, that the professional athletes of the NFL care more about like maintaining their physical and mental well-being than they do about giving you your big tough guy, big man football. But like, suck it up and deal with it, dude. Like this kid is a buzzkill. Like, this kid sucks. Like, I feel bad because the kid is like 17 and I don't know how much power he had over the final draft of this article and how it got put out of here. And it is fully possible that, the version of Ryan Morgan that we are presented with in this article is totally out of context and not really like how he is. But if this is remotely what he is like, then this kid sucks. Like, this kid sucks, and if this is the profile of the average American white kid, then we are in for a grim future. Oh, last little piece from this NFL part. The article closes that paragraph of him ranting about the NFL with, it's a quote from one of the announcers when Matthews, gets a hit or hits some player and gets a flag for it, and later in that game, one of the announcers is like, just look at him, he's confused, he knows what he can't do, but he doesn't know what he can do. Okay, all right. So they go outside and like, he's waiting for his mom to come pick him up. They talk a lot about like, oh, Ryan has a different personality in Mountain than he does in West Bend, in his, liberal high school town. Like, he feels like he could be himself up here where he hunts and skins bears and judges professional athletes who have exerted themselves in life way more than he ever has. and like, so he's up there, and like, they sort of set it up like it's going to be like, his mom's going to get there, then he's going to go back, and then we're going to get, the conclusion of the story, once he gets back to his, his hometown, see like, oh, we're going to draw some conclusions. And then the article just ends. And then it's just over. Like, they're waiting in the parking lot for his mom, Tori, to show up, and the article is just over. It just ends. The first time I read this, I actually thought I had like missed a page or something, and I went scrolling through the rest of this issue of Esquire, like 90% of which is just ads and other crap, but like, and it wasn't there. Nothing was there. I couldn't find anything. And yeah, so I really do believe that this was a good topic to explore. Like, I mentioned this in the beginning of this video, but like, exploring the effects of Trump's America on white males in America, that's important. That's important to talk about. And it's an interesting subject because, it deals a lot with identity politics, with notions of class and place, and it's really interesting. And there's a lot you can cover there because, ultimately, it's framed as though Ryan, even though things are going okay for him, it's framed as though he's not happy. It's framed as though isn't he doesn't really think he fits in to his high school. He doesn't really have very many coherent plans for his life after high school. He has a lot of potential. He built that computer, he built that crash simulation, but he doesn't really exert himself anywhere. Like, he doesn't try that hard in anything. Like, he just seems very like aimless and kind of empty, and like you could really do a lot narratively with that. You could talk a lot about that, but that's not what they do. Instead, they just like talk about how like how much he's just out of step with the world because he's just too folksy to care about politics. Everyone is affected by politics nowadays, and for someone like Ryan, whose general idea seems to be that like I shouldn't have to be forced to engage with ideas that I'm not comfortable with. I shouldn't have to reshape my opinions based on truths from the world around me. Like, it's such a just entitled, ugly mindset to have. Honestly, like, I'm getting off track. Like, I could go on for like a while, but like, this article was awful. It's horrible. Anyways, though, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was informative. I hope this was interesting. Go and read this article, if for no other reason than to entertain yourself, because it is such an astonishing failure of rhetoric that I think you will get a lot of enjoyment out of that. But otherwise, I am going to probably put up a extended piece about this. I'll link it in the description too. And wow, I just can't wait to see what they do next.